Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about something incredibly important. If you have a young relative overseas who has tragically lost their parents, you're probably asking yourself, how can I bring them here to the safety of Australia? We're going to break down the Orphan Relative Visa, a very specific pathway designed for exactly these heartbreaking situations. So let's get into how it all works.
So, let's get right to the heart of it, shall we? You've got this fundamental question. What can you do when a child, a member of your family, is left without parents to look after them, but they have family right here in Australia, ready and waiting to give them a loving home? This is the very reason the Orphan Relative Visa exists.
And here's the official answer, the Subclass 117 visa. The definition is really specific. It's for a child who is single and whose parents are either no longer with us, are completely unable to provide care, or simply cannot be found. And that phrase, can't care for them, isn't about temporary problems. We're talking about severe long-term situations. The whole point of this visa is to bridge that gap and bring that child to their family here in Australia.
Okay, so now we know what it is, but let's look at the incredible difference this visa actually makes in a child's life. We're going to shift from the why to the what a new beginning in Australia really looks like. And this right here is probably the most important thing you need to know. This visa is not a short-term fix. It's not a temporary arrangement. It grants the child the right to stay in Australia permanently. That means real, genuine stability and the security to build a brand new life with their family.
You know, permanent residency is really the key that unlocks everything else. With this visa, the child can go to school, and when they're older, they can work. They get access to our fantastic public healthcare system, Medicare. And down the road, it even opens up pathways for them to sponsor family or apply for Australian citizenship. It's a complete foundation for their future.
Okay, so we've seen the incredible benefits, and they are life-changing. But who exactly qualifies? Let's dive into the specific requirements that the child has to meet.
The government basically boils it down to 3 core checks. First, the simple stuff. The child has to be under 18 and not married. Second, and this is the absolute core of the visa, their parents must be unavailable to care for them. And third, a really important practical detail, the child has to be outside of Australia for the entire process, from the day you apply until the day the visa is granted. And overarching all of this is one guiding principle. Every decision must be in the best interests of the child. Of course, this is a two-way street. We've talked about the child's eligibility, but now let's focus on the sponsor, the relative who's already in Australia. This is most likely you, so let's take a look at what's required on your end. So for you, the sponsor, it all comes down to stability. You have to be what's called a settled Australian citizen, a settled permanent resident, or a settled eligible New Zealand citizen. Now, what does settled actually mean? Well, it usually means you've been living here for a reasonable amount of time. Think around 2 years, and you can prove you have a stable life, a home, and the financial means to care for the child. The government really needs to be confident that the child is coming into a secure and safe environment. All right, let's talk about the practical stuff. For any visa application, there are always 2 big questions that pop into everyone's head. How much is this going to cost, and how long is it all going to take? Okay, so the base application fee is currently 1,980 Australian dollars, but I've got to stress that phrase starts from. That's the main government fee. You'll also need to budget for other things, like mandatory health checks and police certificates for the sponsor, so keep that in mind. Now, for the big question, how long does it take? The government is really upfront about this. They have a tool online that shows recent processing times, but they say it right there. It is a guide only and not specific to your application. You see, every single case is different. Given how sensitive these applications are, you can imagine why they take time. That's why it's so important to submit a complete, well-prepared application right from the get-go to avoid unnecessary delays. This table really sums it up perfectly. You have 2 essential roles here. The child is the subject of the application. They have to meet those specific criteria we talked about. And you, the sponsor, you are the anchor. You provide that stable, secure connection in Australia that makes the entire thing possible. Both roles are absolutely critical for this to work. So, after all of that, what's the single most important thing to remember here? Well, it's that the Orphan Relative Visa is so much more than just an application form or a bureaucratic process. It is a deeply humanitarian pathway. It's designed to give a permanent, safe, and loving home to a child who's in an incredibly vulnerable position by connecting them with a family who can finally care for them. It truly is a bridge to a whole new life.